starve to death. You would never do this to your animal, but yet every day there are so many people putting their animals through so much pain and suffering. Today I will be explaining to you what animal neglect and abuse really is. I have been researching about this topic for the past 3 weeks, and as I have researched about it, it has awakened me more about what animals go through on a daily basis. Most of us have pets once in our life, whether it be a dog, a pet bunny, or a cat. And we've all treated them like family because once they're with you for a while, they really do become part of the family. But there are people in this world who think neglecting their animals and abusing them is okay, when in reality, it's not at all. Today I will discuss the 3 main types of animal abuse, the signs of neglect, and the consequences of neglecting and abusing an animal. I would first like to talk to you about what the 3 types of animal abuse is. The 3 most common types of animal abuse are animal fighting, animal starvation, and chaining. According to the Human Society of the United States, animal fighting is when dogs are only bred and trained to fight in small arena pits, such as roosters and horses. We all know about dog fighting, but not a lot of people know that in other places there's horse fighting and rooster fighting. Another way of animal abuse is starvation, when owners knowingly and unknowingly don't give the animals the right amount of food or water that they need. Another way of starvation is when, by giving the animal the wrong kind of food, meaning when we give our animals human food, that's called animal abuse because dog food is made for dogs, cat food is made for cats, and human food is made for humans, so you don't see us eating dog food, you don't see us eating cat food. Because the food that is for the animals it gives them the right kind of nutrients, like when they're puppies, you're supposed to give them a certain kind of dog food to help them with their growth and with their strength and everything. And when you don't give them that, that's giving them lack of nutrients. Another way of starving your animal is when you give them when you overfeed your animal because you're depriving them of the nutrients that they need, and you're giving them, they can't move, so they can't exercise, and they don't have really like a good long life. Another way of animal abuse is chaining. It's when an animal is chained to a stationary object and keep them under your control. A lot of animals that we know that are chained 24 hours a day are dogs, but what we don't know is elephants are chained 23 hours of the day. They're only let out 1 hour of the day for when they practice or when they perform. And when dogs are chained up for so long, they become so aggressive. And right here, this is an example of tethering, which is another form of chaining. It's when the collar gets embedded into the dog's neck, or for example, elephants gets embedded into their legs. Now that I've told you what the 3 main types of animal abuse, I'll describe to you what the signs of neglect and abuse really are. The easiest way you can tell if an animal is being neglected if there are signs of lack of care, and the facts that I'm about to tell you are all from the popular animal rights group of the ASPCA. You can tell an animal is being neglected if it has a bad case of flea or tick infestation, because if they get so infected, you're going to have to put them down because the whole body gets infected when the fleas bite you with an infection. For example, right here, this dog had a really bad case of a tick infestation on his ear, so it had to get amputated. We all know that dogs and cats have fleas and ticks, but we don't know that cows or like farm animals do get that, and they do pass away because of it. Because every year when you buy an animal, you have to give the dog or your cat a flea bath by law. Another way you can tell if an animal is being neglected if it's missing patches of hair, because that means that the owner is not bathing or taking care of it. If you don't bathe your animal a certain amount of time of the month, it is considered animal abuse because you have to bathe your dog, because that's what you're supposed to do, because if not, that's not taking care of your animal at all. And when they're in a stationary place for so long that they do lose patches of its hair. You can also tell if an animal is being neglected if it starts looking skeleton-like. For example, previously when I showed the pictures of the horse, the dog, and the cat, you can tell it's being neglected if you can see its ribs or its hip bone, or it can barely walk at all. For the horses weigh like a ton, and if you can tell if it's not getting the right amount of food, if you start seeing its hips or it's unable to walk, and when it leads to that, you do have to put them down because there's no way you can feed them to get them back up to where they need to be. Now that I've explained to you and showed you what the 3 main types of animal abuse and with the signs of neglect. I will elaborate for you what the consequences of abusing and neglecting an animal are. By the California U.S. statutes, if a person is found guilty, they can serve time in jail and owe a certain amount of money. The Fighting Animal Abuse States Laws and Fines states that general animal cruelty is a misdemeanor and a $1,000 fine and or 6 months jail. Meaning, if you don't mean to harm your animal, but you are accused of harming your animal, you can serve 6 months in jail and you can pay a $1,000 fine. If you're found guilty of intentional animal cruelty to endangered or protected animals or to any animal at all, you can receive a felony and a $20,000 fine and or 1 year in state prison or in county jail. Here's an example of someone being charged with animal abuse. We all know Michael Vick. And according to ESPN, he was accused of competitive dogfighting, breeding and training pit bulls for fighting. He has financially lost due to being convicted of animal abuse about $142 million, $71 million in Falcon salary. He lost $50 million in endorsements and $20 million in previously paid bonuses. He was finally convicted to serve 23 months in jail, a fine of $5,000, and he has to serve 3 years of probation after his release. Today I talked about the 3 types of animal abuse, the signs of neglect, and the consequences of neglecting and abusing an animal. After seeing pictures of helpless animals that are in need of care, I hope I have awakened you more about what animals go through on a daily basis.
All right, Hannah, tell us what you thought.
I thought that.
Was it you? I'm sorry.
No,
You already did yours. Ari, tell us what you thought. I'm sorry. I wrote it down in this one space here, and it's screwy. I got both Hannah and Ari's name on the same line.
I think I saw this. I thought the speech was good. You kind of didn't catch my attention in the beginning because you started when people were still talking. But I thought you projected your voice very well and your topic was really clear. Although I felt like you were reading from your note cards often, especially in the beginning, when you didn't read your note cards, like when you were explaining the pictures, I thought the speech was more interesting and efficient. Your topic was very interesting and your visuals displayed your points very well, and I like that you had a lot of pictures and visuals so that we could understand what your topic is and what you're talking about better. And overall, I thought your speech was interesting, and I thought that your visuals actually helped you a lot.
All right. I think that you're stuck behind the demo station, and you definitely want to avoid doing that. You stay there the whole time, and in essence, you almost become the narrator of the slideshow. Although you're rushing so quickly that it's hard to describe it as narration, you do have some descriptive things that are going on there. The visuals are very dramatic, and they pull us in. They're used primarily as transitions. In the later spots, you do have a couple of examples where you are talking about what the issue is, and you're using the visualization to illustrate that. That's okay. The transition to the topic, to the main part of the speech was clear. There's a good preview that's pretty straightforward. But when you get to the body of the speech, it seems very abrupt. You dive in and you start giving us a list. There's not really a lot of information that's being provided. You give this whole discussion of fighting, and you just say there are these 3 types of fighting, but we don't get any information about how widespread they are, how frequently animals suffer in this particular way. I think you might make an early Michael Vick reference at this particular point, since that's probably a subject that popped into most people's heads at that point. You can still come back and do it when you're talking about the consequences at the end. But you mentioned horse fighting, for instance, and I'm going, how do you get horses to fight? I don't know what goes on in this and where they do these kinds of things. And is it something, for instance, that happens in this country? I'd be interested in knowing more about that, but I don't really get much about that before you're on to the next thing. The visual images are dramatic. Like I said, they draw us in and they work pretty well. You use them primarily as transitions at first. They are a little gruesome as you get further into the speech, and I know that that's going to keep people involved. I heard one source citation when you got into the later part of the speeches about the I forget, it's not the Humane Society, but it's some other animal welfare. ASPCA, there you go. You know, that got quoted, and I think that you want to be a little bit more consistent about citing your sources and giving us quotes and statistics and examples from those particular sources, because I don't really feel like they're being integrated into the speech very well. I'm sure all of your information came from valid sources, it's just not being integrated into the speech. The infestation issue, you've got, that's where the visuals, I think, really work at explaining what you're talking about. Again, I think that we need some more detail. You basically say, hey, you're committing animal abuse if you're not bathing your dog. Okay, well, how often do you need to bathe your dog? Is it often enough to avoid an infestation? If you bathe them 3 times a year and they don't have an infestation, are you still abusing the dog? If you bathe them 3 times a week, is that necessary? Are there any I mean, often these things get put into the speech and then there's no follow-up on them, and I thought that that was a little bit problematic. Let's see. And like I said, you sound like you're rushing the whole time that you're speaking. You have more time, there's more to talk about, so you can pace yourself a little bit more. But it's pretty well organized. The visuals are used reasonably well. You do definitely project really well. That part's good. So there are, there's solid stuff in the speech, but there are a lot of things that you can fix up too. All right, thank you.